Yippee-ki-yay, mother... And today we're going to have a look at not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 pens. Now that I've got a Pelikan M1000, a lot of you are interested in a shootout with the M1000 and the Montblanc 149. I've done so, but then there were other requests. The Dolcevita for the Homo Sapiens by Visconti. And I just went through my pens, and I picked the oversized pens that I own, and I've lumped them all together. And today we're going to have not a shootout, but a massacre. Because these are 6 large pens, heavy pens, big pens, long pens, etc. So this is what I'll be comparing today. I'll give you a brief rundown of the pens in a second, but first of all, I'm not going to show you how to take these apart, because a lot of these cannot be taken apart. You can unscrew a nib and feed unit, but I guess you can figure out how to do that. And some of them, like the 149, you cannot take this apart without the proper tools. So it's that simple. I won't even go there. Secondly, of course, I could have included other pens, but you make choices. I decided not to put in the Montblanc 146. I have done a shootout between the 149 and the 146, and today I thought I'd really only whip out the really large ones and play with them, and not include the small ones. Funny as that may have been, this is only getting worse. I'll stop right there. So it's going to be 6 oversized pens, and it will be these 6 oversized pens. The Montblanc 149 Meisterstück. I'm not going to cover the whole pen. I've done a separate review of all 6 of these pens. Check out the individual reviews if you're interested in that. Today I just want to compare them. 18 karat gold nib, double broad, big pen. All I'll show you right now is the size of the pen when it's posted, just to give you an idea. Big pen. Then we have, of course, the Pelikan M1000, the Souverän. Another large pen, one that I enjoy quite a lot. This is really big when you post it. Then we have the Dolcevita Oversize. This is the only eyedropper filled pen. The other ones are piston or converter filled pens. This one is an eyedropper, so this holds a lot of ink. If that matters to you, check out this one. 18 karat nib, 18 karat nib, 14 karat nib, which I'm assuming is rhodium plated or something because it doesn't look like gold. Then we have the Omas 360, the original model, not the new, more rounded off model. This is the original triangular model. I love this pen. I think it's fantastic. I don't use it a whole lot because it's a bit of a pain to clean. You cannot take anything off, so it's really sucking up water, squirting it out, etc. 18 karat gold nib, lovely nib, fantastically smooth. Super large pen. When you post this, I don't usually post it because there are some known issues with the cap cracking, but I'm just doing it here to show you. This is sick. I mean, this is an 8-inch pen when posted, so that's large. Visconti Homo Sapiens Lava Steel Oversize, the pen with the longest name I own. Made of lava, funny to the touch, a little rubbery. Has a 23 karat palladium Dream Touch nib. Is also not exactly a small one. Big pen. I enjoy this one. Smooth nib. Very funny. These, what I've shown you up to this point, have all been piston fillers, except for the Dolcevita, as I said. Officially, this is a piston filler. I think that's what it's sold as. But unlike the Bronze Age Oversize, this one, it doesn't have the power filler system. This is actually just a piston, but it's pretty much just a converter built into the pen. So you cannot remove it. You can twist this end, but someone told me it's pretty much a converter in the pen, and when you unscrew the nib and feed unit, you actually see that. So it's a little odd, a somewhat odd system, but it works perfectly well. Very smooth, nothing wrong with it. And finally, I have the Yada LED Retro Grand. This one too is large. This is a significant pen. and it's very interesting to use. It has an 18 karat gold nib. There's been a lot of discussion about this. I'll talk about that a little more in the writing sample, but it is a gold nib. This is the only pen that I've got in this lineup that's actually just a cartridge converter filled pen. So 6 large pens. I will, at the end of the writing sample, I've done just a comparison. I just show you all the pens one of the other so you can sort of see the shape, not posted, just capped, and that's all there's to it. 6 lovely pens. I don't think I have to point out all the details. Again, I have separate reviews of the pens on my channel. Check them out if you want to see what the clip's like, etc. For now, I'll just do a writing sample, and that's all there's to it. A lot of pens. I hope this is going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so before us we have a virginal white sheet of paper. I have 6 large pens lined up to defile it. Here we go. Let's start with the Montblanc 149. I'm not going to bother writing down Meisterstück. This is the Montblanc 149. Let's do a bit of writing. Let me put down the nib width there. Unfortunately, not all of these pens have the same nib width. I'm sorry. This is what I have. The ink in all 6 pens is Waterman Florida Blue. That's a very well behaved ink, that's why I chose it. Let's have a look at some line variation. I start with note the skipping here. I start with no pressure, now I'm adding more pressure, so under absolutely no pressure the pen skips a little on this paper. Paper being Rhodia, dot pad. There we go. See what other tests I can do later. Then we have the Pelikan M1000 Souverän. Again, I'm not going to write that down, just to save some space. Note how this nib sings. I'm not sure whether you can hear it, but it makes a very specific noise when writing. That's actually a good sign, by the way. Oops, lazy dog. And I should add, this is again a double broad nib. This is 18K, by the way, and that is 18 karat gold as well. Okay. Delta, Dolcevita, broad, and 14K, I think. Now I'm not sure for a second. I have to grab a loop here. 14K, that's right. So far, let me just finish this one up for the flexiness. Again, usual warning applies. Please be careful when you do this. Don't spring your nib. That would break my heart. Okay, so far, I would say this one is the smoothest, closely followed by that. And the Dolcevita, much as I love that pen, is not the smoothest of these three. It's not scratchy. It doesn't give a huge amount of feedback. It's just not the smoothest. Believe me, all 3 pens are very, very smooth. It's just that if I have to take a pick, and that's what you are going to ask me, because I know you will, and that's rightly so. After all, this is a comparison. So far, this is the winner. Okay, these are 3 highly expensive pens. Let's have a look at something else that's also quite large, the Omas 360. this too is not a cheap pen. I'm not suddenly moving on to a preppy or something, but these are really iconic pens, and I think this one is a fairly close competitor. Omas 360. Let me unpost. I don't like posting this pen for some reason. The triangular stuff always makes me afraid I will break the cap. The nib here is 18K, and as you have probably guessed, this is a fine. So this is not a broad nib. I'm sorry, I just don't have a broad nib, so you'll have to work with what you get here, and that's fine in this case. A lot of people ask me whether this pen is pleasant to use because it's triangular. All I can say is if you ever had to have a shot to try this out, even if it's just a rollerball version or something, don't pass up on the chance. I was blown away when I held this for the first time. It's extremely comfortable to hold this. So don't be afraid that this will be unpleasant to hold or something. Okay, I won't move the paper so that you can see everything. Let's have a look at some of the flexibility or the springiness of this nib. I shouldn't really say flex, I guess. A little less variation than you would get from these nibs, but it is a fine nib, so... Visconti! People wanted to see this one in here too. Homo Sapiens Steel Age, Homo Sapiens Steel Oversize. And this is broad, and if I'm not mistaken, no, this is broad and 23K palladium. Isn't that PD, the chemical element? Oh, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean. It's always funny that people, they do something and then you have no clue what they're talking about because they have explained it in a completely incomprehensible manner, and then they will say, you know what I mean, right? I always notice that. It's what my students do too. They write a paper and it's you have no clue what they say because it's completely poor use of language, and then they will say, but you know what I mean, right? No. Okay. That's a nice bit of flex. This palladium stuff is quite soft and springy. That's nice. And then finally a pen that I consider to be oversize. You know, just oversize. Even though it's not called oversize or anything. The Yada lead Retrogrand. If my handwriting suffers, that's because I'm reaching around a tripod leg here that's resting on my disc. Should you wonder. The great mystery of this nib, it doesn't look like gold. Some people think it's white gold. I have, believe it or not, I have contacted Yada lead and they said, no, it's solid gold, which is then nickel-plated. Nickel-plated. I never heard of that, but it's apparently nickel-plated to match the sterling silver trimmings of the pen. 18K, and it is a medium nib. Not a whole lot of springiness. Okay, let's try to evaluate this a little bit. I think this is all I have to show you. I could do some fast writing to see how well the feed keeps up, but the feed keeps up pretty well with all of these pens. The only thing is, some of them are a little more prone to skipping than others. This one does not skip so much. This one skips a little. This one doesn't skip. It just doesn't skip, at least. I've used it quite a bit and I've never really found it to skip. This one can be skippy, this one can be quite skippy, and this one occasionally skips. So that is highly subjective. Clearly it depends on the ink you use, on the paper you use, the way you hold the pen. A lot of factors. I'm not saying that every 149 skips, but mine skips quite a bit. It's that simple. Especially on this nicer Rhodia paper. On copier paper it's no problem. Okay. So, now that I've used these 6 large pens, which one is best? Well, I mean, that is so subjective and they are so different. I mean, if you want a pen with a lot of metal parts, then this one will be better than this one. If you need a pen with a sick ink capacity, then you'll need this, because this is an eyedropper and I think it holds nearly 6 milliliters of ink. So that's a lot of ink. Etc. etc. There's a lot of things to take into account. Of course, there's design. This is a completely different design than that. Is one better than the other? Well, that depends on you, obviously. Okay, so I've talked a bit about the skipping. I'll talk about smoothness. This one is extremely smooth. The Visconti Homo Sapiens Oversize is very smooth. I really like that nib. This is a pretty nice nib. They're all nice nibs, but my 2 personal favorites, if I were to pick 2 right now, would be the Pelikan. I think that's a super sweet nib, but also, strangely enough, the Omas. I think that offers a very nice, very smooth writing experience. And this one is very consistent. There are no skips, no hard starts, it just writes. Mine always writes. This pen is the only cartridge converter pen in this set, although my Homo Sapiens is the steel version. It doesn't have the Visconti's power filler system as the bronze version has, I think. This is a piston. It has a piston turning knob, but in fact there is pretty much just a converter built into it. So I'm not sure whether you would want to call that a piston filler. I do, because you twist a knob and you just stick it in the ink. That's all there is to it. But for some people, some purists out there, that may be an issue. Clearly an eyedropper. This one is the least convenient to fill up. I can see myself using a piston filler on the road. I can definitely see myself using a converter, cartridge converter filled pen on the road. An eyedropper is going to be difficult, because you need to bring a bottle of ink, you need to bring an eyedropper, whereas with the others I can just bring a traveling inkwell, stick the pen in and fill them up. So that is something you may consider. The final thing I will say is they are fantastic pens. Something I can try to do here is put them all in view. I'm not sure what, no, they're probably not going to fit that way. Just to give you a bit of a size comparison. Let me use the same order I used for the writing sampled. I have to move this up a bit. Sorry, this is a little impromptu. Bear with me here. Delta, and then we had the Omas. That's a really big pen. No, not the Dolcevita, the Homo Sapiens Oversize, and finally the Yardeled Retro Grande. There you have them. So I hope this was a little useful, and pick your poison. I'll see you later. Bye bye.